Hi, I'm so glad you're here. This is Melissa, and together let's find those grounding magical moments in our lives that nourish our spirituality. Over the years, I have discovered I have a resistance towards collecting tools like herbs, candles, and also towards doing spells, more elaborate or more formal rituals. I am solitary most of the time, and so not doing all these things sometimes make me feel like I am simply a non-practicing witch. Recently, it occurred to me maybe it's something more positive. Maybe I'm just a more minimalistic witch. And first, I have to explain I'm not by default a minimalist at all. I love objects. I like collecting eclectic different design and crafts, things made by artists. It's just that I've moved around so much. Each home, each apartment I know is not going to be my permanent, so I don't want to collect a lot of things. Early on, of course, I don't have the money to buy a lot of things, and also pretty much in the closet, so I don't have a lot of space to display or organize my things, or a lot of space to use them in activity or spells and things like that. So I kind of feel like it was forced by my life circumstance, and I would have rather have a big library of things, like I would dream of a home with a big library of books. And yes, I feel like objects and items, they embody so much symbolism and so much energy and stories, and it therefore presents energy and all kinds of lessons that we're learning all around. So if I could, I just like collecting a lot of things and stuff. Okay, however, going back to how I feel like I am kind of really feeling into this resistance, because I've always felt kind of resentful towards this limitation, that this is how it has to be, that I just don't have a home of my own, and so that I cannot do all the witchy things and set up an altar like someone with maybe a bigger house or more confidence or freedom to express would do. But over time, it has kind of, I've adapted to it, and this is how the natural resistance to doing things with objects and doing more formal activities, it seems to have become part of me. So instead of still feeling resentful that I can't collect tools and do witchy activities, I became more like, I don't want to do these things. It puts a burden on me to think about doing that, because how it's always been a limit. And so that happened for a few years, and that's how I start wondering, am I just not practicing it? It's a depressing thought. It's like telling myself I'm not who I am. And the reason I'm recording this now is slowly there's the idea that there must be, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with this, there must be a lot of people living their lives or living their witchcraft or paganism this way as well, with very little tools or with very little spells and practices that's a little bit more formal. This feels significant and magical because instead of being frustrated, I was becoming more curious about why I feel this way. It frees up energy for me to enjoy and to believe in what I practice and what I do instead of what I don't. And all these times I feel like one part of my core practice that means the most to me is prayer. instead of working magic. And I'll talk about that a little bit because I think since the beginning, since I first started learning about paganism, I wondered why doing magic work seems to be a defining point. It makes me feel a little lesser. We all start with very little tools and very little money, but having those elaborate things, kind of like making cocktails. Not a great comparison in terms of where you want to be, but I've always felt uneasy in how much tangible and elaborate side of the spirituality is depicted and presented to us instead of the spiritual side. To me, paganism started as a support. Religious support means we need something to hold on to, a higher power to believe in for our emotional, mental, community support. And that's why I gradually found like the first thing I feel like that will support me in my practice is prayers to different deities, to different nature energies, and all the other things. While, for example, candle magic or herbs, they are all part of this earth and the energies that we're working with, but they're somehow a little excessive. They could be skills, they could be additional practices, but it's not the spiritual side of the spirituality. And so I feel like it's after all these conflicting feelings, I'm finally letting this idea and how I'm living sort of come together and coexist. They're not really balancing each other, they're still conflicting, but I'm feeling into more of them. I'm feeling into both of them a little more. And I think this is about the time when, minimalistic, which that kind of term suddenly popped up in my head. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but what I mean is I am feeling more at peace with having conflicted feelings. I also feel it's time and it's important to acknowledge that a person can be a pagan without doing lots of spells and rituals. I'm a pagan because of what I believe, my worldview, believing in the interconnectedness of things and the wisdom and the magic of the earth. I think spirituality are things and beliefs that keeps me going, that keeps me strong and gives me hope and faith. And that can be totally separate from tools and from acts and rituals. If life circumstances doesn't support me doing a lot of that, owning things and doing activities, and I think there's a minimalistic side to it. I'm sure there are many ancient pagans who live on simple means and they don't buy things in order to be spiritual. The way they live life and the way they have a belief, that's how they're spiritual and have their faith. And so this is much more of a review of life rather than kind of a snapshot in the day-to-day. But I think it affects my day-to-day a lot when I'm reading, when I'm seeing new information and such. So I hope this reaches people who either have already seen the bigger picture of this or feel like they've never identified much with the magic working or the more physical and spells and ritual, that side of it. And that's it for now. And I'll see you next time.